Today, I'll be speaking on the disproportionate effects of the death penalty on children in Saudi Arabia, given the authorities' long history of handing out the death penalty to minors. Despite making numerous promises to end this practice, little to no progress has been made, and death sentences continue to be handed out to juvenile offenders at an alarming rate. Several are currently at imminent risk of execution. In April 2020, Saudi Arabia's official Human Rights Commission announced a royal decree extending the 2018 juvenile law by ending judges' discretion to apply the death penalty when sentencing those convicted for offenses committed when they were under 18. However, it contained significant loopholes, such as excluding cases brought under the counterterrorism law and capital crimes under Sharia law. The Human Rights Commission later went further and insisted that no one in Saudi Arabia will be executed for a crime committed as a minor. This was echoed by Saudi authorities at the UN Human Rights Council, claiming that anyone who commits a death-eligible crime as a child will be subject to a maximum sentence of 10 years in a juvenile institution. Such claims were followed by positive news. In August 2020, for example, the public prosecution ordered a review of the death sentences passed against three young men, Ali al-Nimr, Dawood al-Marhoon, and Abdullah al-Zahir, for acts they allegedly committed when they were minors. As a result, their sentences were commuted to 10-year prison terms, and all three have now been released after completing these sentences. However, for the large part, the claims have been totally undermined. The application of the 2020 Royal Decree, itself highly flawed, remains uncertain, and the text has never been officially published. This was exemplified by the execution in June 2021 of Mustafa Darwish for teenage protests which occurred when he was between 17 and 19 years old. Furthermore, a wave of death sentences have been handed down against individuals accused of crimes committed as minors, contradicting the Saudi authorities' claims further still. Between July 22 and March 23, the Specialized Criminal Court of Appeal upheld death sentences against Jalal al-Labad, Abdullah Drazi, Hassan al-Faraj, Yusuf al-Nasif, and Ali al-Mabyuk, and the criminal court that of Abdullah al-Hathloul. All six are now at imminent risk of execution, pending final rulings from the Supreme Court. In October 2022, the Specialized Criminal Court also handed down death sentences against Jawad al-Qiris and Ali Sbeiti that are currently under appeal. Meanwhile, the prosecution is calling for the death penalty against Mahdi al-Muhsin. Abdullah al-Hathloul was charged for alleged murder and robbery, and the other 8 have been convicted or face charges under the kingdom's draconian counter-terrorism law. They include acts protected by the rights to freedom of expression, peaceful assembly and association, including participating in protests against the treatment of Saudi Arabia's Shiite minority and attending the funerals of people killed by the security forces in these protests. The court's rulings have followed grossly unfair trials that fail to meet basic standards of due process, including by denying legal counsel and access to criminal files and admitting coerced confessions as evidence in courts. Ali al-Mabyuk said, "I wasn't allowed to phone the lawyer and wasn't allowed to have my legal representative present at the investigation stages, and I wasn't informed of the time or day or dates, and this is contrary to the law of criminal procedure." Jalal al-Labad's lawyer said, "The accused had earlier requested legal assistance to prepare the evidence that would prove he had been placed under duress, consistent of recordings from the interrogation rooms, but his request was not granted by their owners, the judges hearing the case." Following their arrests between 2014 and 2021, Several of these young men were subjected to severe physical and psychological torture of various kinds, including beatings, electrocution, and death threats. Some were hospitalized as a result and developed health complications. However, the Saudi courts have failed to investigate their complaints regarding this torture and have instead admitted their coerced confessions as evidence. Jalal al-Labad's lawyer says, and their honors will not be unaware that brutally beating the accused with pipes and shoes and cables, banging his head on the table until he passed out, electrocuting him and threatening him with certain death if he did not attest his confession, invalidates the investigation process. Fears for the 9 individuals are heightened now that the rate of execution in Saudi Arabia continues to spike, with over 60 executed in the first half of 2023 alone. If the Saudi authorities were serious about abiding by their commitment to end their use of the death penalty against child offenders, they would quash the death sentences passed on these young men immediately and establish a moratorium on the use of the death penalty with the aim of working towards its abolition. Thank you.